So great. Yeah, I'm so sad I can't see all of you, but it's great that we can do this. So actually, yeah, if I can be your host and I can share the screen as well. So I just really hope that all of us be as interactive as possible. There's the chat function. So if you are willing to share, that would be great as well. So yeah, if we look at our young people today, obviously we have so much dreams for them. I have 3 young kids, so they are 6, 4, and 2. Actually, this is 7, 5, and 3, and I have one more coming. And I just want to ask all of you, what traits do you want to see in your children when they become adults? If you're comfortable, you can put it in the chat. Yeah, what are some traits you hope to see in your children when they become adults? Great, I'm sharing screen now. So for me, I guess I want to see them being passionate, creative. I want them to have courage, integrity. I want them to follow God, worship Him. I think most of us feel the same way. Ways are their worlds different from the one that you grew up in? Now, of course, all of you are of different ages, but how is the world different? It's similar in many ways. I'm 34 this year, but already the world that I grew up in is 100% different from the world that my children are growing up in. And I think one of the main differences is the kind of exposure to media that they have. So right now, these are the apps that the kids are using, TikTok. And on TikTok, you literally have probably thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, millions of videos, a constant stream of entertainment with different kinds of values. You have Netflix. A lot of young women and young men are using Netflix now, and it's kind of shocking how much pornographic or almost pornographic material is on Netflix. In the past, when I was growing up, there's only Channel 5 and Channel 8, and everyone watches it at the same time. There's no such thing as watching it alone because it's in the living room. We have YouTube, where they have free access to all sorts of videos, and you have Instagram, which is a huge very popular app among the young people, where you see a lot of photo sharing. A lot of you are probably on it as well. You notice I don't put Facebook here because they're not on it anymore. But very different world, and you can imagine already how it has impacted their self-image, their worldview, and the things that are going on. So of course today we really are here because we want to train up our children in the way they should go. This is a very common verse: train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he's old, he will not depart from it. A lot of wisdom here, but one other interpretation of this verse is actually very different. If you look at the original Hebrew, the word should is not even in this verse. So one possible interpretation is, if you train up a child in the way he goes, even when he is old, he will not depart from it. So children are inborn with selfish instincts, tantrums, a lot of kindness and sweetness as well. But if we train up a child in the way they go, for example, my third child, she can be more stubborn, strong-willed. And if I continue letting her go in the way that she wants to, when she's old, she will not depart from it. So you can see it almost as also a warning from the guy who wrote this proverb, that we have to be intentional to train. If we don't train, then we are unable to see them actually walking in the paths that they should go. Okay, I think Pastor Joe has to stop share if possible, so that they can see my screen, so that I can control the slide. Yeah, thumbs up, Ivan, if you can see my screen. Yeah, you should have 2 girls, right? Yeah, so train up a child in the way he goes, even when he or she is old, she will not depart from it. So it is a warning to me as a parent that I need to be intentional. One of my heartaches is seeing parents just give up on parenting when the youth become teenagers or young adults. It's almost like there's a sense that I can't fight with my child. He or she will just do what she wants. But when they're young, you know, like potty training, food, schooling, we are so intentional. We send them to enrichment classes. And I want to encourage all of you that you are so important in the young adult and teenage years. I am 34 years old and I need my parents more than ever because I don't have no clue how to parent my kids if I don't have my parents to teach me. So you are very important. And this is a really great Hebrew proverb that I love. Happy the generation where the great listens to the young, for it follows that in such a generation, the small will listen to the great. So today we're going to do a lot of listening to what the young people are saying. And it follows that if you understand what they're going through, they will listen to you. So let's understand Gen Z. Gen Z is pretty much a new generation, not the millennials. We have so much articles and talks about millennials, but now it's time to understand the Gen Zs who are really our teenagers right now. You see in them a lot of delayed adulthood. My mom was sending me pictures, very funny memes. Yeah, like how in the olden days, the young women were well dressed with sleeves and like skirts covering their knees, maybe in the 1950s. And now the teenagers are sitting in the subway stations with like ripped jeans full of holes. You see like in the past, young women maybe actually really taking up domestic skills, and now it's like I get married, I don't even know how to use my rice cooker. There's a lot of delayed adulthood, and we can't blame them because a lot of things have been done for them by their parents when they were young, helpers and things like that. They are digital natives. A lot of us think that millennials are digital natives, but actually it's the Gen Zs that are, because they grew up with internet. I didn't grow up with internet. I only had internet, like really good internet, maybe when I was 16, 17, 18. And I managed to spend the formative years of my life pretty much internet free. But they are not. They know, like my son, sometimes when I say I don't know something, he tells me, just Google lah. And I had to tell him, hey, Google can only give you information. It doesn't give you wisdom. Only God can give you wisdom on how to make decisions. They are also the generation that defy categories. Recently in the news, MOE, MOH had to deal with young men, woman, men who wanted to change gender and has gender dysphoria. That's what she or he says. And they defy categories in terms of gender, in terms of the pronouns they want to be called. They defy categories in terms of like the very fixed kind of categories we give people in terms of their political views and things like that. We know, we can see very clearly in American politics, it's a deeply divided group. And a lot of it is coming to our shores as well. They're all about fluidity and openness to be different. You know, it's very common now to try to wear clothes that are not gender specific. And they are very confident and authoritative in their beliefs. Don't ask me where they get this confidence from. I mean, I look at some of my young teenagers or young adults who just started to vote. Wow, the views that they show on Instagram is so confident. They're so authoritative. It's like they know what is the best for us, who we should vote for and everything. And it's good that they have confidence and authority in their beliefs about climate change, about sustainability, about things like that. But we really do need to understand that this is the world we grew up with. The assumption that maybe we grew up with is different from theirs. There no longer is there assumption that one man, one woman is the norm of a marriage. Now you have like solo marriage, now you have open marriages, now you have same-sex marriages, and they grew up hearing that that is the norm. Yeah, so that is actually what the Gen Zs are thinking. But let's go deeper into your teen. Your teen is going through a lot of changes as well. So right now we need to understand obviously that physiologically they're going through a lot of changes, and it helps to break it down. They have an emotional brain versus an executive brain. And I didn't know this until I was 23 or 24, but the executive brain, the part of our brain that is fully functioning, developed, able to make logical, clear choices, only actualizes when you're 25 years old. So before that, sometimes you might be very confused. How come your youth has flashes of brilliance? You know, they're so logical, wise, mature. And then sometimes they just give into their emotions and It just becomes so unreasonable. I laugh because I think about when my three sisters and I were growing up. I think my dad and mom had a really tough time with all our hormonal changes and emotional outbreaks. And yet we felt we were so wise and mature then. So let's also understand there's major brain and physical changes. Not only is the body going through change, the brain is going through a major reconstruction as well. And for some of the young women, when they are going through physical changes, they feel very embarrassed about it. And as dads, you might feel sad because they might withdraw from you because they feel awkward about the way their body is changing. And for the guys as well, they are also going through physical changes and they might be embarrassed about it as well. So it's very good to be wise and sensitive about how you touch your daughter, the kind of hugs that you give her, making her feel safe and making her feel like you understand. So instead of like bombarding her with like, or him with a lot of statements, learn to ask questions because they're going through brain overload. And when you ask questions, you're actually training them to think logically, training them to think in a very much more logical way. And you're helping them to grow those muscles that they need. And I think that's hard for us as parents because from young, we tell them what to do. But at this age, they really want to engage in shorter conversations and process those in bite sizes. Rather than having the talk on big topics, it's more of like having many, many talks, many conversations and bonding moments with them. So Carlos, we actually did a huge research project into 5 things I wish my parents knew. And this is specific to young women. So Pastor Joe will share about guys later. But for this, we interviewed about 100 girls and then we did a focus group with 30 of them. So we did get quite deep insights and we recorded some of it in this book of insights that we have made available for parents. So the first thing I really wanted to share, I mean, this is Singapore specific, right? It's really the amount of stress they face in school. And a lot of them felt their parents don't understand. And to be frank, I don't understand as well. I used to be able to have cell group on Wednesday afternoons after school with all my schoolmates from the same church. But now that's impossible because their school hours are so long. They have CCA, they have things like that. Even for the youth pastors, they are saying if I can get them on a Saturday afternoon, that's great. So the amount of stress they face is also exacerbated by a sense of pressure from parents. One thing that kept coming up among the youth was like, my best is not my sister's best is not my best. Stop comparing me to my sister or my cousin. This is my best. And I wish my parents knew how much pressure I face. And that is really quite sad. My son just started P1 and it was like he's going into this school system where he's counted by his grades, but he's also enjoying the challenge of learning. So I guess the goal here is to keep the joy of learning without making them feel that they are defined by their grades. And that's a very common thing that we find, that girls define themselves by their grades. So show them that you love them no matter what and express that love. So you see, the second thing is I want them to express their love. I want to know that they love me no matter what. And even though technology is such a big part of their lives, 65% of them said they still prefer face-to-face conversation with their parents. They do want to have deep conversations with you. I mean, girls love to talk, but they want to know, what they're not sure is if their parents are a safe place to go. So I guess here it's so important to understand our daughters' love languages. I have 2 daughters and already it's very clear. One of them loves hugs and touches, and the other one, frankly, I still am not sure. She doesn't like to hug. She doesn't really like, but she just loves it when I give her gifts. So I'm guessing that is her love language. When she had her kindergarten concert, we got her a bouquet of flowers and she was beaming. So learn to express it in a way that they understand. And the third thing might shock you. I want to hear about their dating experiences. Actually, I'm surprised because I don't want to hear about my parents' dating experiences. It's like a bit awkward for me. But Gen Zs, they're so authentic, they're so big on openness, and they want to hear from your mistakes as well as your victories. It's very interesting that they actually said that. Remember to protect her innocence, her imagination, share with her what's appropriate. But they really do want to know, as they move into adulthood, they're starting to think about marriage, boyfriends, and to be honest, it's not even when they are approaching adulthood, when their kids is pushed onto them, all the storybooks, all the movies, cartoons that they watch, there's a very specific ideal of romance, and they want to hear from their parents. And this is something that you have, your unique selling point. This is something that Google cannot fight with you, YouTube cannot fight with you, Netflix cannot fight with you. Only you have your story of how you and your spouse met, and how that dating experience went. And I'm not sure if it will surprise you that they actually want to hear your advice. Some of them, of course, say it was very awkward, but most of them were really genuinely curious. We can talk more about that later. So another thing they really wish that you knew is that they want you to be more involved in their spiritual life. As shocking as that might be when you look at how apathetic our youth look sometimes, this survey was done across a broad spectrum of young women. Not all of them are like on fire for God, leaders in church. But there was that sense that, hey, I do want my parents to be involved in my spiritual life. I don't want them to just fade away. Some of them actually said, like, I'm very confused why my parents said I should be putting God first, but during PSLE or exams, they tell me to stay home and study. So youths are actually asking, hey, are my parents going to guide me or not? Yeah, and wait, oh, so this is dating experience. Okay, wait, let me go back. I repeated the last thing, but the last thing that they really wish that you knew was that they want to communicate better with you. And that's really interesting because when we surveyed some moms, one of the top 3 things they wish their kids knew was, I wish that I could communicate better with them. And so there's this like mutual sense that both sides try and understand each other and they don't. And of course, because with technology now, it's like there's a huge generation divide in many, many ways. In the past, the division was geographical. Someone from India would not understand someone from China. But now a Gen Z Indian youth probably understands his China Gen Z counterpart much better than their Gen X or baby boomer parents or grandparents. Yeah, so they do want to communicate better with you, but maybe they want it to be done in a way that they feel safe and loved, in a tender tone, and one of them specifically said this: don't ask me about my grades only, ask me how I am as a person. So Gen Z, they're very confident, they can articulate, right? They're like, yeah, can you ask me about how I am, not just about my grades? So even though during the teenage years there's a lot of angst, they put on a tough front, but deep down they do want to communicate better. I remember this lady from my church, she has 2 twins. And so she said it's very obvious how it's different. One child, she will talk to you. The other child, she'll write a letter to you. And she said she had to learn that that's how her children communicate, even though she doesn't like to write letters, because one child loves to write letters, she just has to communicate with her in that way. Sometimes she just find a note at her door and like, Mommy, this is why I was angry with you just now. I'm sorry. This is how I would love to be treated next time, and things like that. So your youth do want to communicate with you. So that's for those with daughters. If you have no daughters, this might be irrelevant for you, but not really, because one day you might have a daughter-in-law. But yeah, I'm going to pass the time on to Pastor Joe, who's going to share about the guys' side. Yeah, so 5 things the guys wish you knew.
Thank you, Shi Wei. Very interesting, very amazingly interesting. I did not obviously do any survey like she did, but what I've done is that I think I can also share the platform with people like Deborah and Demi here, who's got 3 boys as well. Maybe the only advantage I have is that my boys are a bit older lah, and I'm much older than you all of you all. So yeah, with that as well as my many years of working with youth and young adults, I've come to I come to realize, I mean, a host of things that parents tell me things, and even the youth and the young adults are telling me things as well. So I've collated this in line with what Shi Wei has shared also to put across to you 5 things also that maybe our boys wish that we parents know. Okay, the first one I just want to talk about is that, yeah, this is something I think typical of Singaporean parents, right? And this is what the boys are telling me, including my boys. Subsequently, they don't tell me straight in the face when it happens when they are in that age. But now, maybe in the adulthood, they tell me things like that. Not every conversation has to be a lesson, because sometimes our boys just want to have a friend. right? For us to listen to them. I think Shi Wei talked about it, and I think we should not be labeled this. Listening is very, very important. Active listening, right? Because obviously as parents, we've seen them grow right from young, and we are really itching sometimes to give them life lessons and tell them just in case they go wayward and all that stuff. We also gawk at the first time we see them want to pierce their ear, when we start going into the diatribe and, hey, you shouldn't be doing that and all that stuff. But I think our kids, our boys, just want us to hear them out. They just want to hear, what are they going through. And so maybe perhaps I realized that as I look back in my life and how I boo-booed so many times, I could have taken a step back from, going on a discipline mode and ask them, like what Shi Wei was saying, right? How are you actually doing in school, in your life, in your social life and everything? What's new in your life? Because if we go into that mode like I do, every time, hey, how's your grades and, how's your schoolwork? Why are you always playing computer games and all that kind of stuff? You basically kill the whole conversation. And I think that's what we don't want to do, right? And therefore, a lot of us have experienced this, right? When our boys gets into that age, you know what I mean by that age, right? Secondary school onwards, suddenly they don't share anymore already. Primary school, they tell you everything. And suddenly they go into that age. Oh my gosh, what's happening? Are they onto drugs or are they doing all that kind of stuff? So we get paranoia sometimes, right? We try to pry, and that's one big no-no that you will basically clamp them, you shut them out even more. So one of the things maybe we need to understand, why are our teens hiding a lot and don't share as much with us? And maybe it's because we've been on that discipline mode, right? Like, can we turn on to become a friend mode instead? Asking the whys instead of telling them what to do, but asking them why, really with genuine desire to really understand what are they going through. So perhaps consider this, right, as the first point. The second point is that obviously we get tired, stressed up, and anxious too. That's what my boys tell me. And the common thing we always say, right, we label them as the strawberry generation. I can tell you, nobody likes that kind of tag. All right. So because in our time, our parents probably looked at us and say, "Hey, you guys are so soft, man. You're so soft. You're so noir. Why can't you toughen up and all that stuff?" So here we go, right? We pay it forward right into our kids as well. So this is one of the things. And then we go into this diatribe. Okay, maybe I speak for myself. I go into this diatribe and tell them, when I was in your age, I was doing this, I was doing that, I was carrying more responsibility. And you can imagine looking at their face and say, yeah, I heard all that before when you're in your age. Now this time is so different. The policemen wear shorts then, Policemen look so different now, So come on, get real. So that is one of the kind of things, right? We got to be careful. And I think I commit this mistake very often by telling them, okay, maybe this is how you should, you should live your life and all that kind of stuff. And if we go on that mode, I think that's where I think it kills the conversation going. So teens, our boys, wish that their parents knew also that they are also just like us. They go through, they get tired, they get stressed, and they get anxious. It's not because they are a strawberry generation or something. They struggle with mental right? Oh, can you hear me? Okay. Oh, what's that? All right. So
Yes, they come.
oh, okay. So yeah, our kids have to get a lot of things done. Their homework, their school, their friends, their CCA, and they have to handle parental and adult judgment and all these kind of things. So they struggle with this as well. So I guess maybe a reminder, learn from my mistake, okay, parents, please do not belittle or play down the anxiety and the stress that our boys go through. Okay, so that's the thing that I like to share. The third one is that this is one thing, right? When they get into that age again, their room is a safe space, is their safe heaven. Wow, you must treat that sacrosanctly. You cannot just budge in and then that kind of stuff. That's a big no-no. After a long day of school, right, and CCA, they long to be in a quiet place, and that place is their room. So that's what the teens want from us. They want us to respect that their privacy is really a big deal for them. We need to knock the door, right, and wait for confirmation before we go in, right? I'm brought up by that, very autocratic parents. So what do you mean, right? This is my house. Why do I need to knock the door? Come on, this is my house. But unfortunately, no, that doesn't work very well with our boys, my boys, right? I don't know if you have that same experience. So maybe perhaps to knock and give some kind of courtesy, the way we would expect them to also accord the same level of courtesy, we ought to do that as well. So then the other thing is that unless necessary, don't come into their room for lame reasons, all right? And that's why my wife always try to go in there, try to pretend and try to find an excuse to go in there and check what they're doing. They see it through, they can call our bluff, and that's not a good thing, okay? So let it, then also the other thing is that when you see their room very messy and you were so tempted to go and try and organize their room and their life, that's also a big no-no as well. I think Angie is a stickler for my tidiness, and she's been doing that. And sometimes she chants upon their diary and all that stuff. Oh boy, that was almost World War III. Okay, it almost takes a long time to recover that kind of trust again. So I'm sharing with you some of the boo-boos that we went. So really, perhaps remember their room is their safe haven. So do treat that with respect. Okay. Now the fourth point I want to say is that don't bug us when we are upset, right? That's what when we know when our kids are not right, our boys are not right. So when they are upset, my boys will tell me, don't keep asking me every second what's wrong. Come on. When they are ready, they will tell us, right? And they hate it when we try to pry from them. And if they don't want to tell us also, they request, they say that we should respect that as well. Just like us as well, we have problems. And sometimes we don't want to tell people as well. So likewise, our boys also would ask the same for us as well. Okay. Then the last one, obviously this is also, I think we all have experienced this, right? Their phone is their social life. So sometimes the tendency is that some of us will think that, their mobile phone is really ruining their lives. They spend so much time on the phone, and then after that they neglect the studies, and that's what we go on, right? That's our thought. But you see, the problem is that they have grown up from a very different generation, and their generation is the connected generation that goes through the mobile phone much more than the laptop actually. So here are some things I got from various blogs and the internet as well. How our teen boys use their phone and social media. Okay, they connect with their friends. They make new friends. They learn new topics, understand the world faster, and they manage their finances, receive even job opportunities, and join groups that have shared their interests as well. So these kind of things, they use their phone, and really their lives revolve around the phone now. So I think my boys would tell me that don't make fun or judge them because they're using their phone. Perhaps we could actually have a conversation with them like I did with my boys, and ask them like, how can they stay balanced between the present and their friends around them? Because one of the things that really irks us as parents is that even at dinner times, right, they go into their phone, or when we talk to them, they go into their phone and they refuse to participate in the presence of whoever's ahead of them. So what I will do is that I will then have that conversation. How can we have a more balanced way? Because we also would like to have airtime, because you're my son and I really do care, and I really want to, know how things are with you. And I think all these can only happen if we keep the relationship alive with them. And I think because as busy parents, right, some of the times, like last time when I was very busy in my life, I seldom have time to spend with my boys. And then when we get to that age called teenage years, and then I start wanting to like tell them what to do with their lives. And that's where I think it's a big no-no, because they would then tell me that you have forfeited the opportunity to be part of my life. And then now you want to come in and tell me how to live my life. You don't even know the context. You don't even know what's going on. All right. So that's what I learned as well from my boys. And then only when I started to get more involved, get more interested in what they are actually doing, only then will I have the so-called the right to speak to them about their life in that sense. Because the idea, yes, we can shove it down their throat, right? We can tell them all this kind of stuff. They will comply when we are around. But the moment when we are not around, you'll see a very different animal, right? I just want to close with this illustration now, because I'm always very, I dislike it when my boys start using vulgarities and obscenities, right? It's very common, especially when you go to the neighborhood school or even some of the good schools also. Teenage basically likes to use a lot of vulgar words, right? Peppering every sentence with the four-letter word or something like that. So my boys played up to it because I used to be like very strict with regards to that. And I remember when one day when I decided to come home early because I was on MC, then as I walk along the corridor, my boy was having a conversation with his friends, a group of friends outside my house. And little did he know that I was just came back. And wow, my gosh, I was so surprised. Wow, full of profanities I've never heard before. My dictionary was automatically enhanced that day because I learned so much more new words from that little tiny conversation I heard. So one of the things, that's why as a reminder, maybe perhaps for us to remember that we need to be careful, and maybe to really have to listen and to have that relationship with our boys rather than just go on this discipline mode. Okay, that's all I have from my side. Thanks, Shui. I hand it back to you. Shui, you are on mute. Sorry, Shui.
Yeah, thanks. That's insightful because my son is 7 and in 5 years' time, I'll be facing all of these. Yeah, so now I'm going to share about key issues that young women face as they grow into adulthood. Again, this is a very, very condensed version of a lot of the research we have done that is available in this little book. So, one of the big things, obviously, for teenagers, not just young women, is identity and self-image. And this is what the girls shared. I want my parents to affirm me regardless of how I perform in school or how I look. That's a key thing, or how I look. One young woman shared, I find it quite sad that her dad used to make fun of her face all the time because she had pimples. And that you have like the power of life and death in your words right now. When a daughter is going through the awkward phase of puberty, how her dad views her, um, it's going to be really powerful. And for the moms as well, you know it. If you have a bad self-image, your daughter will have one too. If she hears you complaining about your nose and she has your nose, she will feel insecure. I often your role is as moms and dads to really encourage your daughters. I mean, don't tell them like generalities like, oh, you're so pretty. Some of them know they are not, there are prettier girls and there's not so pretty girls, but affirm them. Hey, I love the way you chose your outfit. It looks really good on you. Some of them specifically said, my parents criticize my outfits all the time. One of the moms specifically said, your outfit looks like grandma's. And of course, for her, it's like, I'm just trying to be creative. I'm trying the vintage look. So the more specific you get, the more encouraging. I love how those earrings complement your dress, I remember when I was a bridesmaid for my friend's wedding. My dad was at the wedding, and even though it's something embarrassing, I remember when I was walking down the aisle, my dad was like, "Wow, so beautiful, very nice." And even though it's embarrassing as a woman, a young woman, I feel like, wow, my dad still sees beauty in me, even though I'm feeling kind of embarrassed to be walking down this aisle in this dress and everything. And how you speak into their lives about their body image will actually shape their self-worth. And one interesting thing we found was that most of the time negative comments came from their brothers. So if you have an older boy and a younger girl, watch how your son talks to your daughter and rebuke him if he's speaking wrongly. A lot of them actually shared some quite painful things that their brothers said um, to them. Yeah, in fact, it was uh, quite a huge proportion. Those of them who got comments on their weight, 65% of those comments came from older brothers. And that's actually very sad because 50% of the girls we surveyed said, I feel fat. 50%. And you're like, that's crazy. I also think it's crazy because in Carlos, we take pictures of all these girls. So many of the pictures in these slides are from our magazines. All of them look beautiful to me. And then some people say, how come your magazine only shows skinny, pretty girls? I'm like, that's the girls that are out there, but most of them feel fat. Half of these girls think they are fat. So as parents, we need to use our words to shape their body image in a very powerful way. And I don't know if Pastor Joe wants to chip in here as well about identity and self-image for boys, because boys also do feel very much sensitive about how they look actually.
Okay. So, Shubhi, this is where I come in, is it?
Yeah, if you want
Okay.
to.
Okay. Sure. All right. So identity, I think, yeah, you hear it from the lady's perspective. Now, this is an empirical experience, right, from my son, my eldest son, especially when he was born, he was really the king in our family. I gave everything to him, perform him, say that he's the greatest and everything like that. And I can tell you that then turned out a bit of a challenge in a few in subsequent years to go, because after that, when he hears all these praises and affirmation from the parents, and when he start to go into school, and for the first time he realized, oh gosh, I'm not that great after all. Other friends are more capable. They are doing all the other kind of stuff, and it hurt his confidence. And that took him so many years to try to recover that. And now we are still reeling. Both Angie and myself, we are still struggling with that. And I think that's where I think we need to also consider, because I think a lot of us as parents, right, we hear a lot of those Western thoughts, about, affirming your kids, saying how good they are and all that stuff. But here, I've experienced a counter experience as well. And that happens quite bad. And I think that's what happens when you start to see the reality of of it all. It became very bad. So maybe it's something that we have to to consider that. Just to balance what Shubi has just shared. Yeah. Okay, Shubi.
That exactly,
Okay.
like don't just tell your daughter you're beautiful, because they know, like in my school there's like at least 10 or 20 girls more beautiful than me, but be specific about how you can affirm them. Okay, and then for love and relationships, like I mentioned just now, they want to hear your dating experiences, but they also have many questions. When we had our love and sexuality conference last year, we received so many questions. We couldn't even like answer all of them. We had to create a book. We created a book just to answer their questions. Some of the questions are like, what's the right age to date? What are some emotional boundaries that I should have? And during this time, you might feel like you don't have much of a say, but actually what you say has a big impact on them. I remember when I was thinking about when to date, very randomly, my parents just said like, hey, you know what? I think a good time to date is 21 years old. And they don't remember this conversation. It was never a rule that was enforced. But what they didn't know was that I had already decided I didn't want to date till I was 21 privately. Yeah, and I felt like God was using my parents to speak into my lives at that time. um, but during this time, some girls will feel like it's very embarrassing, because they don't want to like tell their parents what they're going through. Some of them really feel like that you will jump to wrong conclusions. Let's say they ask you, mom, what's the right age to date? Then suddenly the parents will be like, huh, why, you want to date someone? Did someone ask you to date? Like what's happening? So don't jump to conclusions. Be calm and cool. Just let the questions come. And it's like a two-way street. If they feel that you understand, they'll ask you more questions. Or if they feel like you're going to give them a lot of wrong advice, then they'll just clamp down. So think of creative ways to kind of share these things. You could be like, when you're watching a Korean drama together, just discuss the plot, discuss the characters, what you think they did well, what they didn't do well. Those are non-threatening ways of sharing values. And then listen first before reacting. Sometimes it's really awkward to have some face-to-face conversations, so writing her a letter might help. Just be creative. Maybe when she's 13 or 16, when it's Valentine's Day, as a father, as a mother, you'll want to write a combined Valentine's Day letter to her and say, hey, my dear daughter, this is the age you might be thinking about love and dating. These are just some thoughts that we have, and these are some things we want to affirm you on, some advice. When you do it like that in such a romantic, almost sacred way, I think your daughters will be more than receptive. Yeah, so I don't know about the guy side though, like how do you talk to young men about love and relationships? I can't hear you. I don't know if the rest can. Can't hear you. I don't know if the rest can hear Pastor Joel. Yeah. It's completely muted. Maybe you mute yourself and unmute and then try again.
Can't hear you, Pastor Joseph.
Okay. While he's sorting it out, maybe I'll just continue. Oh, okay. Got
Okay,
it.
here we go. I'm so
Got
sorry, so sorry. Yeah, on relationships, I think for the guys, I think we don't usually have this experience of talking about it. Oh, how's your only when usually my experience is that, and the guy friends as well, usually the boys don't tell the parents sometimes. I mean, generally, I'm generalizing, right? They don't tell them when they are in a relationship or they're interested in somebody. Maybe for fear of rejection, or for fear of all the maybe the whole lesson plan that comes with it. Like, oh, you're still too young. Why are you doing this kind of thing? You should study, that stuff. But I think there's another element that I think that maybe one should be conscious about. Our mainstream pop culture is it's actually playing up to to the fact of, romantic love as the ultimate fulfillment in life. And I think that's where I start to see a lot of our youth and even young adults, right, especially when they're not hooked on, they can't find a romantic partner or a partner that is suitable, and they start to feel they start to lose a sense of self-worth, and they feel they're rejected, left on the fence, and all that kind of stuff, not as good and all that stuff. And I think that's something that we also have to be very careful, because as you find, right, in the trend line is more like now of singles. I mean, our young adults are remaining singles much later. They're getting married much later. So take, for example, right, Angie and myself, we got married at the age of 25, 24, 25, no? My goodness. And now the average age where couples get married is beyond the 30s, right? So that's where you have a situation whereby, you have, because of the busy lives, you will run into an issue, a problem where you find, individuals or even your kids, when they don't they don't find a partner, and then they feel as if that something is lacking in them, or they're not good enough and all that stuff. And I've actually counseled and I spoke to quite a number of young adults also, that and youth as well, they feel that way, right? They have that low self-worth because of not being able to find a partner. So that's why I think it's very important to do that. And as a consequence of that, I think, okay, I've not drawn a correlation, but I do also notice even some studies I read, but this is in the US, those in this case, when this will then bring them towards closer, there's a propensity to move towards things like pornography, because pornography promises some kind of an artificial relationship, right? And so that's one of the things, that's why we have to be careful as well. Okay, thanks, Shi Wei, back to you.
And that brings us to the next topic, purity and temptations. Now, probably you won't even know that I was referring to pornography in this, but there's this saying that pornography is the new drug. Maybe in the 1960s, drugs were the main thing that teenagers were getting into, but now it's pornography. It's in their phones, it's in their rooms, and it's heartbreaking when we asked our young Christian women who are addicted to pornography, when were you first exposed to pornography? 46% of them said when they were under 12 years old. So for some of us, it's almost already too late, as in they are already in it. But it's not too late to be aware of it and then to guide them. I remember the first girl in my church who ever confessed to me she struggled with pornography. She looks like an angel. I don't think her parents would suspect in a million years that their young angelic daughter is struggling with pornography. And another one shared that, yeah, I'm in it because I'm so lonely. My sister is in university. I am Sec 1, she's in hall, my parents are at work all day. I'm lonely at home, and this is something that I just do after school every day. And it's encouraging also that there are a lot of groups that are getting more aware of this. People are speaking out against this issue, and not just like it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong. A lot of girls know it's wrong, but they still do it. Why? Maybe they are lonely, maybe they are unaware. A lot of girls, unlike guys, stumble across it. For guys, a lot of it is intentional, but for girls, sometimes it's a YouTube ad. It's a thing. One of the girls just shared in our Colors article. It was just some anime, and then YouTube videos just led on and on and on to something that just spiraled out of control. And so when we understand all these, we we have to provide a safe space for them It's not easy. I really think it's not easy. Eventually, this girl did confess to her mom because she knew her mom would be a safe space. And this is what one of the girls said. I wish parents, pastors, churches would be more open and transparent about addressing this issue in public without shaming. So last month, I was at Bedok Methodist Church, and we did a session on pornography and purity for the young women. And it was so encouraging because like their adults were sharing about their struggle with this and how they overcame it. Imagine seeing like a 60-year-old lady share about her struggle with pornography that started when she was young from her uncle's magazines. Like immediately the walls in the room just disappeared and there was so much safety and authenticity. And I think sometimes we have to protect our children's mind, their imagination, but there's also a time for appropriate self-disclosure. There's a time for education. For example, we teach them, hey, do you know it's not just a moral issue, it's a brain issue as well. Pornography affects your brain. And so during this time, as young as possible, discuss with your daughters what are good pictures, what are bad pictures. Even my young children know what is correct dressing, what is not so correct dressing. And let your daughters know it's not where, if, it's when. If it's not even in the equation anymore, it's when. When you first come across pornography, I want you to know you can talk to me about it. And of course, as parents, please do your due diligence. Yes, we respect their space, but the computers and the phones you give them are given by you. So install the filters, install the softwares. I think the biggest lie parents believe is my children are angels and they will not do anything wrong. Install apps like Covenant Eyes because you will know what they are seeing. And tell them it's not because I don't trust you, it's because I want to protect you. It's like I would never let my son get into the car without a seatbelt. I would never give you a phone without giving you those seatbelts so that you can have a fun and safe journey on the internet. Yeah, so, we can never protect our children from the new drug, but we can cultivate in them a heart of wisdom from a young age. And another thing I found so helpful with the young women, because women are more compassionate and empathetic, one thing that just destroys their bubble, maybe when they look at pornography, is I said, hey, do you know that behind the screen, a lot of them are forced with a gun to perform these things. They look like they're enjoying it, but there's no way a home user will know if this is cyber sex trafficking, human trafficking, or if they're paid for this, if they're drugged to do this. And when they realize the horrors behind the industry, the marketing, the advertising, the kind of profit people are making off these young women, a lot of times they view pornography quite differently. Yeah, and that is enough to kind of say, okay, I want to stay away from this, because nowadays young women are all about self-empowerment, women empowering women. And when they realize they're objectifying women, they're destroying the image of God in these women by participating in this, they realize that they are not empowering women and they do want to take a step back. Of course, they need a lot of counseling and help. But yeah, this is such a huge topic. I mean, we cannot cover everything here. But I think if I can just say that your young women are being exposed to it and you be aware of it, that would be the most powerful thing actually. Then that will guide some of your conversations. I'm sure Pastor Joe has a lot to share about this topic with young men as well.
Yeah, thanks, Shi Wei. You covered quite a bit of things as well. It's also applicable to guys. I just only want to share just an experience that Angie myself had. I think when our boys was in primary school, and they play a lot of online games, because nowadays a lot of online games are, available and it's for free. And obviously there are a lot of ads as well, right? A lot of those very seductive ads that goes flashing on the sides of the game. Now, one of the things I think what my boy actually accidentally clicked on one of them. And then after that, Angie somehow walked into the room. She saw something that she thought that she would never see in her life. And my three boys were just gawking and looking at that whole picture, all right, of that act is happening. And she called me and she was so upset. And then that actually was a good thing because it gave me the opportunity to address this with them as well. And I think we all know, parents and those of us who have joined us in the porn addiction talk, we shared about this, how the brain is wired for intimacy. And this kind of intimacy is definitely an artificial type of intimacy. It's never intimacy because it's online, it's virtual. and there's no individual involved, and that the Bible tells us that that kind of intimacy is only to be shared within a covenant relationship of a marriage. And therefore, I totally agree with what Shi Wei was saying. We ought to, as parents, put in safeguards, safety belts for our kids when they start to do all these online activities. I think that's very key, because I do see that even some kids, some youth, boys that are actually also counsel at times, they get a very warped sense of what a female is like. Whenever they look at a woman, they will not look at it, appreciate the person as just another human being. They look at them as a potential sex partner, and everything turns them on, and it's really so abnormal. It's very, very sad to have a young boy to be looking at every woman and gets turned on by every single thing, that kind of stuff. And that's really not normal. And I think as parents, I think we need to take this very seriously, because it might seem to be like a very harmless thing, not an insipid thing, but it grows into you, and that's why they call it a porn and addiction, because it's very hard to wean off once the brain start to go on a certain groove whenever it looks at a certain image, and then start to form that kind of stuff. So it's like what we shared in the last conversation, right? When a guy sees the porn, they have studies that show, the moment the how porn affects the male's brain, it's somewhat like, in a layman's term, right? It creates some kind of a studio, a private studio in the back of the mind. And when any other woman that comes along, that stimulates or trickles that kind of imagination, anybody can be a potential actress in that porn studio in the back of the mind. And it plays over and over again. And I don't think we want our boys to have that, right? And I think that's why I appeal to you all that really we ought to take this very seriously, this fight against pornography, right? Okay, over to you, Shui.
Yeah. So yeah, and just a note that the pornography industry is targeting younger and younger children and females because they need to gain new markets, right? That's just how marketers think. Yeah, in the interest of time, I'm just going to speak through the rest. Yeah, so social media is a huge thing, right? And we know that really it's caused a lot of digital stress, mental stress. So basically, our education minister said last year that cyber wellness is closely linked to mental health. So, when your children are stressed, this is something that I want you to know, learn more about. There's so much on social media. There's so much cyberbullying. There's cancer culture. There's fake news. There's this whole thing about like we are woke, and so we express our views. You can imagine the kind of bombardment of images, views, worldviews, advertising. When the kid goes onto social media, it's so easy for that brain that's so young still to be bombarded and just so overwhelmed. So I think it's good that when we give the phone, almost like a rite of passage, like a ritual, if you have really young kids, the first phone you ever give to them, have some understanding of how it's to be used, when it is to be used, where it is to be used. And even now, I don't think it's too late. You'll be surprised at how many young people actually like to do digital detox. They just need some guidance and help. I've seen youth who willingly just delete their Instagram app for a few weeks or months if they find it unhealthy. So if you do it together with them, it could be a form of encouragement as well. And yeah, just to really encourage you to find out more. So don't just diss social media, say it's bad, it's evil. Your youth are spending almost like on an average, on a weekday, they're spending almost 1 to 2 hours on social media. On weekends, they're spending about 3 to 4 hours. So that's a lot of their time. That's a lot of their lives. And so it'll be good if you can walk with them and just converse with them. What's your favorite app? What is the latest news you've seen on these things? How does it make you feel? Do you feel jealous, insecure? Can you share more with me? And guide them on how you manage social media, because I think you can't outgrow it. As a parent, you probably still feel jealous when you see your friend posting about their vacation or their new car or their new house. So share with your children how you manage it. And the last thing is about friendships. So for young women especially, it's a huge thing. 80% of our young women say they have felt lonely in school. But one thing that was very encouraging, which we didn't expect, was that a lot of them said, I can share my friendship problems with my mom. So I think it's just a sensitive period, a sensitive topic. If moms could be more aware, get to know the names of your girls' friends, get to maybe even invite them over to make your house a safe space for them, and just help them navigate this very messy, complicated thing called friendships for young women, because it can be very toxic at times. And now with the phones, it can be even more toxic because you can basically cancel someone online or bully someone online, and you bring it around in your phone everywhere you go. And then on faith, one interesting thing that I wanted to highlight was they actually shared, I want my dad to be the spiritual head. This came up like way more than we expected. And another thing that we were surprised, I want to do Bible study and worship together as a family. Uh, yeah, like maybe that's their unspoken desire, but they do want to see their dads being more hands-on. I think for moms, it's kind of easy for us to feel like your mom will take care of your spiritual needs. She's praying for you, but you want to see your dad doing. I remember like when I was younger and my dad told me that he fasted every Tuesday, it kind of made a deep impression on me. Like, my dad needs to fast. Wow, my dad needs God. Like, that was actually a big revelation for me. And maybe for you as a dad, I want you to think about how you could express or show to your children you want to lead them spiritually in your actions, and to do Bible study and worship together as a family. I remember when my parents tried to do that, it was so awkward, but I still think about it kind of like it's kind of nice that we tried. And during this age, they have a lot of questions about apologetics. You need to help them think critically. You need to read with them. You need to find out about dinosaurs and evolution and same-sex marriage, whether the Bible is true, how was the Old Testament created. Maybe some questions you don't have answers, but you need to start reading up and discovering the answers with them. And for some of them, it is really not enough for them to know that Christianity is true. They want to know, is Christianity good? What good is a faith if it's just true and then it like just creates so-called monsters like Trump? That's what people are thinking about the Christian faith now. All the Christians are voting for someone like Trump. Like, it's true, but is it good? He's opposing abortion, but is it good? And so when they see marriages where you're pleasant to each other, you're kind, you help the poor, they see that, wow, this faith is not only true, it's good. So yeah, just to sum up, I really want to encourage you, for young women specifically, I need you as parents to affirm her in these 4 areas. Her beauty. This is so important. I have friends who are in their 30s who are totally not getting married, not wanting to date because they just feel so ugly. Why do they feel so ugly? It's because their moms feel ugly and they know it, and they never learn how to dress up. They never learn how to take care of themselves. They just look down on their bodies because their parents do. And then they need affirmation of their femininity, especially during this time when there's gender confusion. Tell them why it's good to be female. I have friends who grew up feeling so bad about being female because their parents favored the sons. And it was very obvious. So tell them why it's good that they are female. What do you see about them being female that is so beautiful? Because when you strip behind our souls, we have a feminine and a masculine soul. That's why today we structured this conversation that way. There's a feminine soul and there's a masculine soul, and you need to learn how to minister to that femininity, because it can be very beautiful. And then to her sexuality as well. For some of you with very, very young girls, the first time they get their period is when they realize they are a sexual being. And it can be very embarrassing or very awkward or very beautiful depending on how you approach it. One of these ladies I know got her husband to bring out her daughters when they got their first period, and he gave them a ring and affirmed them and said, you're precious, now you're entering womanhood, and I want you to know that you're important to me. A girl who got a ring from her dad at her first period, unlikely she will give her heart away to any first guy who comes along, because she'll know how precious she is. And then I need you to affirm her worth in many ways. And I just want to give a word to young moms of preteen girls. You know, if you want to understand any woman, ask about her mother and then listen carefully. You have a very crucial role from maybe 9 to 12 years old to usher in her into womanhood. And yeah, we created this box, this mother-daughter box with this book on how to prepare your daughter for womanhood. And in here we have like this activity book you can do with your daughters, a letter writing set, conversation starter kit, and I think we're gonna do something with your church with this eventually on Mother's Day. But if you're a preteen daughter, this is a great tool to get, because this is what we would love for you to do. Deal with your past. If you had a mom or dad who really made you feel like you were disadvantaged being a female, you know, deal with your issues, forgive your mom. If she made you feel bad when you got your first period, deal with it. Bring your hurts before the Lord. And then make a plan. And that's what this whole box is. It's about plans. We plan 6 dates for you to go on with your daughter. But for you, it could be different. Maybe her first prom, maybe her first day in secondary school, you really speak to her and you write her a letter. You make a plan on how to customize this journey for your daughter. And you find a way to bring in the sacred, romance her, bring in the sacred, give her a bouquet of flowers. That will be so powerful this Valentine's Day. You know, when we had our conference and we gave each girl a rose, a pink color rose, and we said it's pink because white is purity and red is passion, and we want you to be passionate and pure. I tell you, those girls, even now, 6 years later, they still remember that rose, you know, and they have pictures, and it's like, it was such a powerful picture. We had 300 girls all just holding that pink rose. We brought in the sacred. We could have given a purity talk. We could have given them a like no sex before marriage talk, but we gave them a rose. We brought in the sacred for them and we said, you are beautiful and you are precious. And so I hope that you could do that as well. Yeah, so I know we're running short on time. So these are ways you can keep in touch with us through Carlos. And some resources I wanted to share with you. I found axis.org an amazing resource. Of course, focus on the family, most of you know. But yeah, you know, if you can look with me at Axis. So they have these parent guides, a parent guide to smartphone addiction, a parent guide to cancer culture, a parent guide to anime and manga, racism, death, teen identity. It's like, wow, if you could really read through all of these, you would really have great conversation guides with your children, and you can really be educated in many ways. So yeah, I'm gonna pass back the time to Pastor Joe. I know halfway I just gotta cut you off we wanted to share topic by topic, but we had like 5 minutes left. But yeah, please close us with any last words on issues pertaining to the boys. If you have any more last words on these few topics?
No problem, no problem at all. I'm glad that you did that, Shui, because I really have really exhausted all my goodwill with the parents here, because it was meant to have closed in a half an hour ago. So I just want, maybe it leaves me just to thank everybody to that tune in, because if anything, I don't want to be rushing it through, and I think this has been a very informative talk, Shui. Leaves me to thank her on our behalf for a wonderful time of sharing. Thanks, Shui. Thanks so much. And people just look out for that event, because this is something that we planned it together with the children's ministry. We thought that maybe Mother's Day would be a nice time where we start to launch within the church itself how we can actually do that girl to womanhood kind of program, and then maybe culminates over 6 months and leading to our maybe to our intergenerational service, where we can have some testimonies to be shared as well. And that will be a great way to encourage each and every one of us to really take this parenthood seriously. So that's really part of the plan. Okay. So if anybody has any burning questions that you might want to bring across to Shui before, or else you will not be able to sleep tonight, maybe this is the opportunity for you to say something. Anything? Anybody?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Vijin.
Yeah, Vijay.
Just yeah. So I mean, in one of the things that my own work and my own work in school and all that, I think that one of the things that is pretty important. One of the 5 things that we all mentioned, right, for boys and girls, actually is encapsulated in the point about friendship. I think what is common among the girls and the boys is that for us parents to know that their friends are important. So that's important to know that, because sometimes we can sidestep their friends. So it's also to note that because they also get information from their friends. So some of the things that we also need to know. It's good to get to know our friends. I mean their friends, and but also need to know that there is also a space that they do want us to be able to know. So because some of the things that they do, they get a lot of things from their friends. So one of the things that I guess is really also a caution for all of us is that we need to be able to know that even though that they get all this information from their friends, we need to probably process with them. It means that building up a relationship with them to get to know what is being told to them. Because if not, we'll find that we will be losing them to their friends. That's where the informations are coming from. So I think one of the commonality between boys and girls is this, like even in this age, even when we were growing up, we all know, right? We sometimes talk to our friends more than we talk to our parents. So that has not gone away.
Okay.
And even in this age of social media, it has not gone away. In fact, it has deepened further. So that's my sharing for all of us. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Regine. Anybody else? Any questions for Shi Wei? Any burning questions? If not, thank you very much for joining us. Shi Wei, thank you so much again, once again for sharing all this very insightful talk. All right, then maybe let's leave me to thank everybody for tuning in, and yeah, God bless. Okay, have enjoy whatever remains of your weekend. And wow, Demi, your son is doing a performance for us. Okay, so thank you. Okay, thank you everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, take care. Bye bye.